A man shows up at the door with a photo from 20 years ago. He points to the father sitting at the table and says, "This man is not who you think he is." 3 hours later, someone in that room will be dead, and the truth, no one will see it coming. Welcome to the Who Did This channel, where every detail matters, every silence hides something, and no one is innocent until the very last minute. Settle into your seat and enjoy the story. Christmas 2016. A mansion isolated in the middle of a snowstorm. The Arantes family is gathered for the most important dinner of the year. Everything seems perfect. Laughter, gifts, plenty of food. But there's something nobody knows. Something that's about to destroy everything. Because when that stranger knocks on the door, every person in that room will become a suspect. And in the end, you'll realize that the real monster was there all along, hidden behind the most innocent smile. Snow falls heavily outside. The windows are fogged up. The fireplace crackles. The Christmas tree shines with colorful lights, and at the top, a massive crystal ornament reflects the light like a sharp diamond. Arthur Arantes is sitting at the head of the table. He's 52 years old, well-groomed grey hair, tailored suits. He's respected, admired, rich. Next to him is Elena, his wife of 28 years of marriage. She wears an elegant red dress and smiles, but there's something tired in her eyes. Something faded. On the other side of the table are the 3 children. Bernardo, the oldest, 26 years old, law school graduate and always serious. Marina, the middle child, 23 years old, visual artist with purple-dyed hair and an explosive personality. And Lucas, the youngest, 19 years old, quiet, too polite, almost invisible. But before we understand what's about to happen, we need to go back a few hours, because the signs were all there, and nobody noticed. 6 hours before dinner, Eleanor was in the couple's bedroom. She was holding her phone with trembling hands, staring fixedly at the screen. Her face was tense, worried. Arthur entered the room at that moment, adjusting his tie. "Who were you talking to?" he asked, too casual. Elena quickly put away her phone. "Just confirming dinner time with the cook." Arthur looked at her for a long moment. That look she knew so well, the look that said, "I know you're lying." But he didn't say anything. He just gave a cold smile and left the room. Lucas, now sitting at the dinner table, watches his parents in silence. He saw the argument earlier. He was walking down the hallway when he heard his mother scream, "You can't do this to me, Arthur. I'll destroy you if I have to." And his father's cold response, "Do whatever you want, Elena. I've already made my decision." Lucas didn't fully understand what was happening, but he felt the fear that something terrible was about to happen. All his life, he'd been the quiet son, the one who never caused problems, the one who always did everything right. And now, for the first time, he felt like everything was about to fall apart. Marina, on the other side, was more worried about her own issues. She had fought with her father earlier because he refused to finance her art exhibition. "You need to learn to support yourself," Arthur had said. "I'm not going to fund your hobbies forever." Hobbies. He called her art hobbies. Marina was furious, but she was also afraid, because she knew that without her father's money she would have to go back to a regular job, and she hated the idea of a regular life. Bernardo was the only one who seemed genuinely calm. He had his own career, his own money. But even he felt the tension in the air. He knew his father well enough to know when something was wrong. And today, something was very wrong. Arthur raises his glass. Today is Christmas, but more than that, today is about family, about everything we've built together. I look at you and see my greatest pride. Cheers. Everyone toasts. The glasses clink. Eleanor forces a smile, but her eyes remain restless, as if expecting something. Then the lights flicker, once, twice, and then comes the knock on the door. It's not a polite knock. It's violent, desperate. Arthur frowns. Who would it be at this hour, in this storm? Bernardo stands up. "I'll go see." He opens the door. A man stumbles in. He's soaked, shivering, face pale. He's in his early 40s, unshaven, simple clothes soaked with snow. He's holding only one thing, a crumpled brown envelope. "Sorry to intrude like this," he says in a hoarse voice, "but I need you to see this." Arthur approaches, suspicious. "Who are you? What do you want?" The stranger doesn't answer. He just takes a photograph from the envelope and places it on the table, right in the center, between the turkey and stuffing plates. It's an old photo. From 1996. Faded. In it, a young man in cap and gown smiles during a graduation. Below the photo it says, "Arthur Arantes, Business Administration Graduation, Federal University, 1996. Everyone looks at the photo. Then they look at Arthur. The face of the young man in the photo is not the face of the man sitting at the head of the table. The stranger points to Arthur. This man is not Arthur Arantes. He's an imposter. And in 1996, he disappeared with a fortune that wasn't his. The real Arthur Arantes? He's dead, has been for 20 years. The silence is deafening. Arthur laughs, but it's a nervous laugh. "This is ridiculous. Who are you, a scammer, a lunatic?" The stranger doesn't look away. "My name is Daniel. I was the real Arthur's roommate in college. We were best friends. And I saw when you showed up, when you took his place." Elena stands up slowly, hand at her throat. She's shocked, but there's something strange in her expression. Something the others can't quite identify. "This doesn't make sense." "Arthur, tell him this is a lie." Arthur looks at his wife, then at his children. "It's a lie. I am Arthur Arantes. This photo is old, could have been altered. This man clearly wants money." "Then explain something to me," Daniel interrupts. "Arthur had a motorcycle accident in 1994. He carried a huge scar on his left arm. Show your arm." Arthur hesitates. All eyes are on him. Slowly, he rolls up his shirt sleeve. The arm is clean. No scar. Marina gasps. "Dad, where's the scar?" Arthur shakes his head, trying to stay calm. "I had plastic surgery years ago, you know that. I always hated that mark. But the doubt has already been planted." Daniel continues. "Arthur had a severe seafood allergy. You ate shrimp at dinner today." Arthur takes a deep breath. "Allergies can disappear over time." "Arthur hated soccer. You have an entire room full of trophies and photos watching games." People change. Arthur never visited his own parents' grave. Not once in 20 years. "Why?" Bernardo turns to his father. "Dad, is this true? Why have you never taken us to see our grandparents?" Arthur is sweating now. I have my reasons. It's painful for me. But now Marina is also starting to remember. "Dad, there's something else. You always said you grew up in Sao Paulo, but one day I found an old letter of yours addressed to Curitiba. When I asked, you quickly changed the subject." Arthur closes his eyes. "I lived in several places when I was young." Elena approaches slowly, eyes wide. "Arthur, you always told me you had a childhood scar on your thigh from when you fell from a tree. I never saw that scar." Arthur swallows hard. "Elena, are you believing this lunatic?" But Elena seems lost in her own memories now. "You never wanted me to see your old photos. You always said they were painful, that the past was behind you. And when I insisted, you got angry. Very angry." Daniel pulls more documents from the envelope. "I have bank statements here from Arthur Arantes' account. Look at the transactions. On June 15, 1996, 12 million was deposited. Inheritance. On June 22nd, the account was emptied completely, and Arthur disappeared." Bernardo takes the papers and examines them. They look real. Very real. "Dad," Bernardo says, his voice serious, "these documents look legitimate. If they were forged, we'll find out. But for now, you have a lot to explain." Arthur looks around. His own family is turning against him, so he stands there, trapped between lie and truth. "Arthur had a birthmark," Daniel continues, "on his right shoulder, in the shape of a crescent moon." "Show your shoulder." Arthur doesn't move. "Show your shoulder," Marina yells. Arthur slowly takes off his jacket, then his tie, then unbuttons his shirt. He exposes his right shoulder. There's no birthmark. Lucas stands up from his chair. He's trembling. Who are you? Arthur puts his shirt back on, mechanical movements. I'm your father. No, Lucas shakes his head. My father would have an explanation. My father wouldn't stay silent. You're someone else. You've always been someone else. Daniel sees the opening. The real Arthur Arantes had a younger brother. Did you know that? Everyone stops. He had a brother named Gabriel, 2 years younger. Gabriel was troubled, had drug problems, problems with the law. When Arthur's parents died and Arthur inherited everything, Gabriel was angry. He thought he should have half, but the will left everything to Arthur. The words echo through the room. And what if, Daniel continues, Gabriel killed his brother and assumed his identity? What if the man in front of you is Gabriel Arantes? Arthur finally explodes. Enough! This is insanity! I don't have a brother, never had. This man is a liar. Bernardo approaches Daniel. Do you have proof that Arthur had a brother? Daniel hesitates for a moment. I saw birth certificates, but I didn't bring them with me. Convenient, Arthur says, his voice full of venom. Very convenient. Marina turns to Elena. Mum, do you believe this? Do you believe Dad could be someone else? Elena looks into her daughter's eyes. Her face is pale, hands trembling. I don't know what to believe anymore, she whispers. The tension in the room is palpable. Each person is processing the accusations, trying to separate truth from lie. You don't understand, Arthur is saying, his voice desperate now. This isn't about money, Elena. It's about respect, trust. Someone is trying to destroy our family. The lights flicker again. The storm is getting worse. And then suddenly everything goes dark. In the darkness, there are sounds of movement, heavy breathing. Someone stumbles over something. Daniel is speaking, his voice coming from somewhere in the middle of the room. Look, I don't want trouble. I just came here to... But he doesn't finish the sentence. There's a sharp sound cutting through the air. Something heavy moving fast. Then the sound is horrible. Flesh being pierced, bone being cracked. A muffled scream. And then the sound of a body falling. Elena screams. Someone light a candle, a flashlight, anything. Bernardo stumbles in the dark, looking for candles. Marina is crying, screaming for help. Arthur is shouting, "What happened? What was that noise?" There are sounds of people moving, trying to find a light source, chairs being knocked over, plates breaking. Finally, Bernardo lights a candle. The dim light illuminates the scene. Daniel is lying on the floor on his back, eyes wide and empty. His neck is pierced by the massive crystal ornament from the Christmas tree. Blood slowly drips, forming a dark pool on the Persian carpet. Marina starts screaming. Elena covers her mouth, horror stamped on her face. Bernardo is paralyzed, the candle trembling in his hand. Arthur looks at the body, then looks up. The Christmas tree is intact, but the top is empty. It was an accident, Arthur whispers. The storm. The ornament fell. But Bernardo shakes his head, forcing himself to think like a lawyer. Dad, this ornament weighs almost 3 kilos. It was fixed with thick wire to the top of the tree. It doesn't fall by itself. Someone took it, and someone used it as a weapon, Marina sobs. He was murdered. Someone in this room killed this man. Everyone looks at each other. Fear takes over. Because the snowstorm has blocked all roads. The phone line is dead. There's no cell phone signal. They're completely isolated. And one of them is a murderer. Bernardo takes control. He's a lawyer. He deals with evidence. Nobody leaves this room. We're going to figure out what happened. He approaches the body carefully, candle still in hand. He examines the ornament embedded in Daniel's neck. The ornament entered through the left side of the neck, piercing the carotid artery. This was deliberate. Someone aimed and hit with deadly precision. Arthur is nervous, sweating, pacing back and forth. You don't think it was me, do you? Why would I kill this man? He was lying, making up absurd stories. Marina turns, angry. Was he? Or was he telling the truth? Because if he was telling the truth, you have the best motive of all to kill him. Elena agrees, her voice trembling. Arthur, If you're not who you say you are, and if you're an imposter, did you kill this man to protect your secret? Arthur turns red with rage. I am Arthur Arantes. I built this family. I gave you everything. And you believe a crazy stranger who invades our house with an old photo? But his words sound hollow now. The doubt has been planted too deep. Lucas finally speaks, his voice low and trembling. Dad, just tell us the truth. Are you really our father? Arthur looks at his youngest son. For a moment, something passes across his face. Sadness? Guilt? Of course I am, Lucas. I always have been. But nobody seems convinced. Bernardo continues investigating. He examines the Christmas tree, illuminating it with the candle. The chair is nearby, slightly displaced from its original position. Who here is short enough to need a chair to reach the top of the tree? Everyone looks at each other, calculating. Elena is 5'5". Maybe she could reach without the chair, but with difficulty. Marina is 5'6". Same situation, Lucas is 5'8". For him it would be difficult without the chair. Arthur is 6'0". He could easily. Bernardo is 6'1". He could too. So any of us could have done it, Marina concludes, her voice still trembling. No, Bernardo corrects, analyzing the scene with investigators' eyes. Anyone could have reached, but the strength needed to throw something 3 kilos heavy with enough precision to hit a man's neck in complete darkness, that requires strength and practice, or a lot of luck. Arthur defends himself, hands raised. I didn't do this. I swear on everything that's sacred. Then who? Elena asks, but her voice is weak, almost a whisper. Marina hugs herself, shaking from cold or fear. Are we going to prison for this, even if it was an accident? It wasn't an accident, Bernardo insists, his voice firm. It was homicide, first-degree murder. Someone planned this. The weight of those words falls on everyone like an avalanche. Lucas remains quiet. He's sitting in the corner of the room, away from the candlelight, knees pulled against his chest. He looks smaller than he really is, vulnerable, scared. Nobody suspects him. Because Lucas never caused problems. Lucas never raised his voice. Lucas was the perfect son. How could he be a murderer? Bernardo picks up the envelope Daniel brought. He spreads the photos and documents on the table, illuminating them with the candle. Let's analyze all of this. If we can prove these documents are fake, we can prove Daniel was a scammer, and that would give any of us a motive to do what was done. He examines the bank statements carefully. The stamps look authentic. The dates match. The amounts are too specific to be invented. These documents, he says slowly, they look real. Very real. Arthur approaches the table. Let me see that. He takes the papers, his eyes quickly scanning, and then his face changes, gets paler. This can't be... What? Marina asks. What did you see? Arthur doesn't answer immediately. He continues looking at the documents, his breathing getting heavier. These statements, some of these numbers, I recognize them. They're bank codes that only someone with real access could have. Bernardo frowns. What are you saying, that Daniel had access to the real Arthur's account? Or that someone gave him this information, Arthur responds, and then his eyes turn to Elena. Someone who had access to my personal files. Everyone looks at Elena. She stays very quiet for a moment. Then, as if a dam broke, the words start coming out. She begins, and her voice is full of guilt. I need to tell you something. The silence in the room is absolute. You can only hear the crackling of the candle and the wind howling outside. I hired Daniel, Elena confesses, tears beginning to stream down her face. The documents. I had them forged. I set all of this up. The room explodes in reactions. Marina backs away from her mother, horrified. What? Mom, why? Why would you do this? Because your father was going to leave me with nothing, Eleanor screams, all the tension from the last hours finally exploding. 28 years of marriage and he was going to throw me away like trash. I found the divorce papers. I saw the revised will. He was leaving everything to a charity foundation. You would get a small amount. And me? I would get nothing. Arthur shakes his head, bitter. So all of this was a farce? Daniel wasn't really an old college friend? No, Eleanor sobs. He was an actor, an unemployed actor, I found. He had debts, a sick daughter. I offered him 5,000 raised to play a role. Show up at Christmas, pretend to be someone from your past, plant doubt. I just wanted to scare you. Make you give up the divorce, or at least guarantee my share of the fortune. Bernardo is looking at his mother with an expression of complete betrayal. So, Mom, you admit you hired an actor to pretend to be someone from Dad's past? Yes, she whispers. And that the documents were fake? Yes, I hired a professional forger. He made everything look very real. So you brought this man here knowing it could destroy our family. Elena can't look her son in the eyes. I didn't think it would go this far. I just wanted to protect my future. Our future. Marina is crying now. You weren't protecting anything, you were protecting yourself. Arthur is standing still, processing everything. So I'm not an imposter. Never was. It was all a lie. Yes, Eleanor confirms. And then Bernardo asks the question everyone is thinking. Mum, if you hired Daniel, if all of this was your plan, and did you kill him? When things got out of control, when he started improvising too much, did you decide to silence him? Eleanor raises her head, horrified. No, I didn't kill anyone, I swear. When the lights went out, I was on the other side of the room. I couldn't even see where Daniel was. But you had the motive, Bernardo insists. Daniel was a witness. He could tell everything, reveal your plan. You could go to prison for blackmail. I didn't kill him, Elena screams desperately. You have to believe me. But nobody knows if they should believe. Arthur is looking at his wife with a mixture of anger and something that might be pity. You destroyed everything, Eleanor. Our family, our trust. And now a man is dead. I know, she sobs. I know. And I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life. Marina turns to her father. But if Mom hired Daniel and the documents were fake, then you're not an imposter. You're really our father. Arthur nods, but there's something heavy in his expression. I'm your father. Always have been. But Daniel was right about one thing. I have secrets, not about my identity, but about how I built this fortune. I did questionable things, made morally dubious decisions, stepped on people to get to the top. So you had a motive to kill him too, Bernardo observes. Even if he was lying about you being an imposter, he was asking questions, investigating. And what if he discovered your other secrets, the real ones? Arthur closes his eyes. I didn't kill Daniel, but I'm not going to pretend I didn't think about it. When he started talking, when I saw my family turning against me, yes, I felt anger. A lot of anger. But I didn't kill him. Everyone stays silent, processing the confessions. Marina finally speaks, her voice small. So, if it wasn't Dad and it wasn't Mom, who was it? Everyone looks at each other. Paranoia is setting in, because someone is lying. Someone in that room is a murderer. Bernardo looks at Marina. You were furious with Dad. He called your art a hobby, refused to finance your exhibition. Marina backs away. I would never kill someone because of that. But you were afraid, Bernardo continues. Afraid of having to go back to a regular life. And if Daniel convinced everyone that Dad was an imposter, you would lose everything. No, Marina yells. I didn't do anything. When the lights went out, I was near the window, far from the tree. Bernardo turns to Lucas, who's still sitting in the corner, watching everything in silence. And you, Lucas? You were near the tree during dinner. Lucas looks up, his eyes wide. I didn't do anything. You heard our parents' argument earlier. You knew they were going to get divorced. You were afraid of losing everything. Lucas shakes his head. I didn't kill anyone. But his voice isn't convincing. There's something in his eyes, something Bernardo notices but can't fully identify. Arthur approaches Lucas. Son, look at me. Did you do something when the lights went out? Lucas looks at his father, and for a moment it seems like he's going to say something, but then he closes his eyes and shakes his head. No, I didn't do anything. Hours pass. The storm continues outside. Daniel's body remains on the floor, now covered with a sheet Marina brought, bloodstains seeping through the fabric. They decide to wait until morning. When the storm passes, they'll call the police, and the police will discover the truth. But the night is long, and the weight of guilt is heavy. Each one sits in a different corner of the room. Nobody trusts anyone. Nobody sleeps. Elena is sitting on the sofa, hugging herself, crying silently. Arthur is in the armchair, staring into space, processing everything that happened. Marina is near the window, watching the snow fall outside. Bernardo is at the table, still examining the fake documents, trying to understand how everything went so wrong. And Lucas is in the corner, knees pulled against his chest, looking at the body covered by the sheet. His face is pale, his hands are trembling. The hours pass slowly, each minute seeming like an eternity. The candle Bernardo lit has already burned halfway. The storm outside is starting to diminish, but still not enough to leave. Marina breaks the silence. We can't continue like this. One of us killed that man, and until the police arrive, we need to know who it was. It's no use, Arthur says, tired. Nobody's going to confess. Then let's review the facts, Bernardo says, going back to lawyer mode. When the lights went out, where was everyone? Elena answers first. I was near the sofa, on the opposite side of the room. Arthur, I was near the fireplace. Marina, I was near the window. Bernardo, I was heading toward the table to get more wine. Everyone looks at Lucas. Lucas? Bernardo asks. Where were you? Lucas doesn't answer immediately. He's looking at the floor, his fingers nervously interlaced. Lucas, Arthur repeats, firmer. Where were you when the lights went out? Lucas begins, his voice almost inaudible. I was near the tree. The room goes silent. Near the tree, Bernardo repeats slowly. Close enough to reach the ornament? Lucas doesn't answer. Marina approaches her brother. Lucas, what did you do? And then, like a dam bursting, Lucas starts to cry. It's not a normal cry. It's a cry of despair, of guilt, of fear that's been held in for too many hours. I didn't want to, he sobs. I didn't want to do it. Everyone stops, frozen. Bernardo turns slowly, understanding forming on his face. Lucas, what are you saying? Lucas raises his face, tears flowing freely now. I killed him. I killed Daniel. Eleanor screams. Marina covers her mouth with her hands. Bernardo closes his eyes, devastated. Arthur just looks at his youngest son, his expression impossible to read. Why? Eleanor whispers, her face a mask of horror. Why, Lucas? Lucas sits on the floor, legs crossed, looking more like a child than ever. I heard you two arguing earlier, before dinner. You said you were going to destroy Dad, that you were going to make him pay, and Dad said he was going to leave you with nothing. Elena shakes her head, tears in her eyes. Lucas, that wasn't... I got scared. Lucas continues, the words pouring out now. Scared of losing everything, the house, the money, our life. I've always been the son who never caused problems, the son who always obeyed, and I thought, if you got divorced, if Dad changed the will, what would be left for me? He looks at his siblings. I'm not like Bernardo, who has his own career. I'm not like Marina, who at least has talent. I'm just Lucas, the invisible son. Marina kneels beside him, tears streaming down her face. Lucas, you're not invisible. We love you. You don't even notice when I enter a room, he says, his voice breaking. You never ask how I am, and I accepted that, because at least I had security. I had a guaranteed future. But when that man showed up... Arthur approaches slowly. Lucas, what did you do? Lucas takes a deep breath, trembling. When that man showed up saying you were an imposter, when you all started believing him, I realized that even my security was going to be taken from me, that our family was going to be destroyed. So when the lights went out, Bernardo whispers. I was near the tree, Lucas confesses. When it got dark, something in me broke. I climbed on the chair, fast. My fingers found the ornament. It was heavy, cold. I heard Daniel's voice in the dark, defending himself, saying he was going to leave. Lucas closes his eyes, tears continuing to fall. And I thought, if he disappears, maybe everything will go back to normal. Maybe you'll stop fighting. Maybe our family will survive. I raised my arm, and I threw. The silence that follows is devastating. I didn't know I was going to hit, Lucas continues. Everything was dark, but I practiced baseball when I was a kid. Dad made me train for years, remember? Saying I needed to be good at something, and I was good at throwing, very good. Arthur covers his face with his hands. When I heard the sound, Lucas sobs, the sound of him being hit, falling, I knew I had done something terrible, irreversible, but it was too late. Bernardo runs his hand over his face, trying to process everything. Lucas, you killed an innocent man. He wasn't innocent, Lucas protests, but his voice is weak. He accepted money to destroy our family. Elena approaches her son and hugs him. Lucas resists for a moment but then surrenders, crying on his mother's shoulder like he hasn't done since childhood. This is my fault, Elena says, tears streaming down her face. I started all of this. I brought Daniel here. I planted the seeds of doubt. I destroyed our family because I was afraid of losing money. Arthur watches his wife and son embracing, watches Bernardo, who's leaning against the wall, processing everything, watches Marina, who's crying silently, kneeling next to her brother, and he realizes something he should have realized a long time ago. He built an empire, accumulated a fortune, gave his children everything money could buy, but forgot to give them what really mattered: presence, attention, true love. Lucas became invisible because Arthur never truly saw him. Marina became rebellious because Arthur never validated her dreams. Bernardo became distant because Arthur only valued professional achievements. And Elena became desperate because Arthur treated her like an employee, not like a partner. This is over, Arthur finally says, his voice tired but determined. All of this is over. Lucas, when the storm passes, we're going to call the police. You're going to have to face the consequences of what you did. But I'm going to be by your side. I'll hire the best lawyers. I'll do everything I can to help you. Lucas raises his head, surprised. Why? After what I did? Because you're my son, Arthur responds simply. And I failed you. I failed all of you. This murder didn't happen in the darkness of this room. It started years ago when I put money above family, when I chose work instead of presence, when I became a stranger in my own house. Bernardo finally speaks, his voice thick with emotion. Dad, you're not to blame for what Lucas did. He made that decision alone. But I created the environment that led to that decision, Arthur insists. Lucas was terrified of losing our family because he never felt he really had a family. He had a beautiful house, expensive clothes, elite education. But he didn't have me. Didn't have us. The room stays silent for a long moment. Marina finally approaches, wiping away tears. So what do we do now? Arthur looks at his daughter. Now we wait for dawn, and when the sun rises, we face the consequences, all of us, because we're all guilty in this, not just Lucas. Eleanor shakes her head, determined despite the tears. I'm going to turn myself in too. I'll tell the police I planned everything, that I hired Daniel, that I'm as responsible as Lucas for this tragedy. Mom, no, Marina protests. I have to do this, Elena says firmly. I can't let my son carry this weight alone, not after I was the one who planted all this madness. The remaining hours of the night pass in heavy silence. Nobody sleeps. They just sit there together for the first time in years, waiting for dawn. Lucas remains close to Daniel's covered body. He looks at the blood-stained sheet and whispers repeatedly, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But apologies don't bring back the dead. When the first light of dawn finally appears on the horizon, the storm begins to pass. The snow stops falling. The roads start to become accessible again. Bernardo picks up the phone, which now has signal. He dials the police with trembling hands. Hello? I need to report a homicide. Yes, at the Arantes mansion, 847 Pinheiro Street. The victim is a man identified as Daniel. I don't know his last name. Yes, we'll wait here. No, the person responsible won't run. It's my younger brother. The call ends. Now it's just a matter of waiting. While they wait for the police to arrive, Arthur sits next to Lucas on the sofa. For the first time in years, he really looks at his youngest son, sees the pale face, the swollen eyes, the trembling hands. "No matter what happens, I'll be here when you get out. I'll rebuild our family the right way this time." Lucas looks at his father through tears. How? After all of this? Because family isn't about being perfect. It's about forgiving. It's about being present in the worst moments. Eleanor approaches and holds her son's hand. "I caused this. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to fix it." Marina and Bernardo also approach. The five of them stay there, together, forming a broken but still connected circle. "We spent years in this house living separate lives," Marina says, "and only now, when everything fell apart, are we finally together for real." The sound of sirens begins to echo in the distance. Lucas stands up. "I'm going to turn myself in. I'll tell everything. I won't lie." Arthur puts a hand on his son's shoulder. "I'm going with you." "We all are," Eleanor adds. When the police arrive, Lucas opens the door before they ring the bell. "I'm Lucas Arantes. I killed Daniel. It was in the dark, during a blackout. I took a crystal ornament from the Christmas tree and threw it at him. I hit his neck. It was intentional." The police handcuff Lucas. Elena approaches. "I also need to confess. I hired the victim to blackmail my husband. I brought this man to our house. I'm responsible. Ma'am, you'll need to come to the station to give a statement, but you're not being arrested now. Just the young man." Lucas is taken to the police car. Before getting in, he looks back one last time. Lucas smiles weakly, then gets in the car. The car leaves, disappearing down the snow-covered road. Arthur, Elena, Bernardo, and Marina stand at the mansion entrance. "What do we do now?" Marina asks. Arthur looks at the remaining children, at his wife, at the broken family. "Now we learn to be a real family, not a perfect family, but a real family." They go back into the mansion. The Christmas tree is still standing, but the top is empty. The carpet still has bloodstains. Arthur sits at the head of the table. "Do you want to know the truth? Daniel was right about one thing. I have secrets, not about my identity, but about how I built this fortune. I did questionable things, stepped on people to get to the top." Marina sits beside him. "Dad, are you saying you're a criminal?" "I'm saying I'm not the man you think, not an imposter, but not a saint either." Eleanor closes her eyes. "So Daniel was right. You're not who you say you are. You created a persona." Bernardo crosses his arms. "And now? Now I propose honesty. For the first time, being completely honest with each other." Marina takes a deep breath. "I always hated living in this mansion. I always felt suffocated. I wanted to be an artist, live in a small apartment, be truly happy." Bernardo sighs. "I chose law not because I loved it, but because it was what Dad wanted. I wanted to be a musician." Eleanor looks at her hands. "I never truly loved Arthur. I loved the security, the status, and when I realized I was going to lose that, I panicked." The silence is heavy, but somehow lighter. "And Lucas?" Marina asks. Arthur thinks for a moment. Lucas would say he always felt invisible, that his biggest fear was losing the only place he thought he had, a place in this family. The tears return. "We failed him," Elena whispers. "Yes," Arthur agrees, "we failed, but we can still fix it. When he gets out, we'll be here, and we'll build something real." Outside, the sun has risen completely. The snow covers everything in pure white, but inside the mansion, the bloodstains are still on the carpet. The murderous ornament is with the police, and a body is in the city morgue. Some things can't be cleaned, some mistakes can't be undone, but maybe they can be learned from. 6 months later. The mansion is empty. Arthur sold the property. He couldn't live there anymore after what happened. Every room had memories of blood, lies, and a family that fell apart. He bought a smaller house, more cozy, no empty rooms and echoes of failure. Lucas was sentenced to 12 years in prison for manslaughter. The jury took into consideration his age, his lack of criminal record, and the extreme emotional context. It could have been worse. It could have been murder and 20 years. Elena got 3 years for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. She's in a women's prison, serving her sentence with dignity. She and Arthur divorced, but amicably. She received a fair amount, not half the fortune, but enough to start over when she gets out. Marina dropped out of art school. She now works as a volunteer at a shelter for at-risk youth. She says she finally found a purpose. She visits Lucas every week. Bernardo quit the law firm. He bought an old guitar and is playing in small bars on Friday nights. He doesn't make much money, but for the first time in his life, he's truly smiling. Arthur drastically reduced his businesses. He kept just enough to live comfortably and donated the rest to charities, including a foundation in Daniel's name to help actors in financial difficulty. Daniel's daughter, who's 7 years old and has leukemia, received all treatment costs paid by the Arantes family. Arthur personally went to visit her mother and apologized. She didn't forgive him, and he didn't expect her to. Every Monday, Arthur drives 3 hours to the prison where Lucas is. They sit separated by thick glass and talk on the phone. Real conversations about feelings, fears, regrets. "How are you, son?" "I'm managing. Therapy is helping. I'm finally understanding why I did what I did. It's not an excuse, but at least now I understand." Understanding is a start. "Dad." "Yes." "Will you really be here when I get out? In 12 years? Arthur smiles, tears in his eyes. "I'll be here every Monday for the next 12 years, and when you get out, I'll be at the door waiting for you." "That's a promise." Lucas smiles back. A genuine smile. For the first time in his life, he feels seen. Truly seen. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." "No, thank you." "Why?" "For showing me who I really was. A man who built an empire but lost his family. Now I'm rebuilding, the right way." When the visit ends and Arthur leaves the prison, he looks at the blue sky. It's a beautiful day. No snow, no storm. He gets in the car, turns on the radio, and drives back home, to the small house where Marina is waiting with dinner ready, where Bernardo will arrive after work with his guitar on his back, where there are photos of Lucas on the wall, not hidden, but displayed with pride. A broken family, imperfect, stained by tragedy, but finally, for the first time, real. Sometimes we need to lose everything to understand what really matters. Lucas didn't become a murderer in the darkness of that Christmas night. He became a murderer through years of invisibility, at dinners where nobody asked how he was doing, in hugs that never happened. Money builds mansions, but it doesn't build homes. Success brings admiration, but it doesn't bring true love. Don't wait for a tragedy to see the people you love. Don't wait to lose everything to value what you have, because in the end, the only thing that really matters is, were you present? Did you truly love? An imperfect but present family is worth more than a perfect but absent family. That's the lesson the Arantes learned too late. Leave a comment down below telling me what you thought of this story, like the video if you made it to the end, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one.